welcome back to Beauty Bee and to a ranking my blushes video. I believe that I did a lip one of these and a nail one of these, and then I promised others. This was months and months ago, and then guess what? That didn't happen. So today we are doing my blushes. I am including anything that I personally tend to use as blush. So there's an eyeshadow in here, there's a lipstick in here, as well as anything the manufacturer says blush, even if maybe I use it as a highlighter. There are also a couple of multi-purpose products in here. Obviously, this is just my opinion, and I want to preface this by saying that I actually like everything in this video. None of it is bad, and I actually stared at my makeup for quite a while being like, what am I going to put in last place? I pretty recently decluttered, and if I really disliked something or if something was bad, I would have gotten rid of it in that process. That being said, we have, I think, 12 blushes to get through, so let's get started so that this video doesn't need to be half an hour long. And we are going to start with my e.l.f. multi-stick in the shade Sparkling Rose. Now, this is not a bad formula. I actually really like the formula on this. Let's see. Wouldn't that be easier? Now, this is not a bad formula. I actually like the formula on this quite a bit. However, I'm not a fan of the glitter in it, especially when the glitter tends to stick around after the rest of the blush is gone, which is what ranks this near the bottom. However, the base color is very pretty. I would be really interested in buying another color of this if e.l.f. came out with some shades that don't have glitter in it. Also worth noting that this is for use on lips, cheeks, and eyes. I'm just talking about it mostly as a blush in this particular video. Very near the bottom, we have my Tarte blush. This is in the shade Harmony, and I have used this 2 bits. That's actually a good portion of why it ranks so low in this ranking, is I had to repress it, and after repressing, it used to be quite a subtle blush, and now it is much harder to work with. It kicks up a lot of powder, and it just gives me more pigment than I am used to with the product. However, if I had been more on top of things and made this video a couple months ago before I'd done my repressing, I think this would have ranked significantly higher. It used to be a lot more subtle. It used to be a very pretty, natural looking matte blush on me, and though I find myself preferring slightly glowy blushes as well as bronzers, but kind of beside the point for this video, this was still matte but not so flat and powdery. This was a really nice formula, and I wish I could have not had to repress it, but that wasn't really an option. Number 3 is this Wet n Wild Baked blush. This is in the shade Hummingbird Hype. You will see another one of these later in the video. These are more like a blush highlighter mixture. They're super glowy. You can see that there. That is super reflective. This, I think, would be absolutely stunning on someone who had just a slightly deeper skin tone. On me, this can be very, very pretty as a blush topper. I wouldn't wear it by itself as a blush. It's just a little bit too much for that, and putting it all in that area tends to accentuate a little bit of texture. And this is pretty. It's just a very specific look and not one that I go for super often. Though I will say that this time of year and going into summer is probably when I will get the most use out of this particular product. Look, I know this is a lipstick, but it's also in this blush video because I will quite often use it as a cream blush. I really like how this applies as a cream blush. It's really creamy, it's really soft. It gives a nice, natural, very slightly luminous flush to the cheeks, and I think it pairs really well with quite a few of my other blushes because I can't wear this by itself. My skin is pretty normal. It can vert a little bit on oily sometimes, but something about cream products make all the oils come out and it would just eat this alive. However, I do find myself reaching for this probably a couple times a week as a base blush shade, and I really enjoy it. The reason that it ends up so low on this list is that I feel like it doesn't last very well throughout the day, which I guess isn't surprising. I mean, it's a satin finish or cream finish lipstick. It's not intended for use as a blush, but I do like the effect for those first few hours, which is why I continue to reach for it as a blush. I have almost no complaints about everything else on this list. They just, some don't tickle my fancy quite as much as the others do. And that is the case for this next Wet n Wild's blush that we're going to see. This is their Color Icon blush in the shade Rosé Champagne. This is quite a subtle peach shade with quite a bit of shimmer in it. I do like that it is so subtle because I don't need to be careful when I'm applying it, and that is always a huge plus to me. I think that the effect of this is pretty on the cheeks. I just don't think it's anything particularly special. I always find myself wishing that this was just a little bit more peach. It has just a little bit of pink in there, and I feel that that really shows through on the cheeks. There's nothing wrong with the color. I just wish it was a slightly deeper or more orangey color, which I admit is not something that I say very often. Next up, we have the other Hummingbird Baked blush. This is again from Wet n Wild, and this is the shade Don't Flutter Yourself. I love this pink. I think it is so pretty. Again, just like the peach shade, it is very, very glowy. I mean, look at that. That's almost a highlighter. And I think it's beautiful. The only reason that it ranks a little bit lower than some of the other blushes that will eventually be up here is that I can't wear it by itself for pretty much the same reason. If I wear this on my cheeks, it tends to accentuate a little bit of texture, but it is so, so pretty. And I find this a lot easier than the peach shade to mix in with the other blushes. I just tend to have a lot more pink blushes than peachy or golden or bronzy blushes, so I find that this is very useful in mixing in with my other maybe more matte to satin blushes to give them a little bit of extra glow. Now we have the only Bare Minerals product that I have ever tried. This is their Gen Nude blush in the shade Call My Blush. This is a really good sized mini. I bought this in a Sephora Favorites set, and it is so, so smooth. I love that about it. And I love the shade of this too. It's very pretty. It goes with anything. Again, it's on the subtle side, which I actually do prefer. This is not super unusual to my collection. I have one or two blushes that give a very similar effect that are coming up a little bit later, but it is a really nice version of that effect. It's a really good quality blush, and I am so glad that I ended up picking up that set. I think this, just for this blush alone, it was a great buy. I think we're into the top 5 now, and for number 5 we have my last cream blush, which is the Milk Lip and Cheek Tint. This is in the shade Work. Here is a swatch of that. This is such a different shade than anything else I own. I tend to use this more on my lips than on my cheeks, but it does work really well on my cheeks as well. I just need to set it down with some other shade. Quite often it'll be this Hummingbird blush or the Rosé Champagne, because I have the same complaint with this Milk Lip and Cheek tint that I have with all my other cream blushes. I just can't wear it by itself, and that's sad because I wish I could get that color, really pure by itself on my cheeks, I think that would be really beautiful. I love it on my lips, and I love that I can pair it to have the same color on my cheeks and my lips. That is a really fun look. It's one that I enjoy doing. I can't say that I would buy another one of these lip and cheek tints. They're just a little bit too expensive, and I think will go bad a little too fast for me to justify. But the effect is really, really pretty, and I'm so glad that I got this in the Sephora birthday gift last year. I went a bit on a face powder frenzy in the last few months, and one of my better purchases was this Cheek Leaders Mini Pink Squad. Now you can see that there's two blushes in here, so I guess spoilers for later. But the one we're going to talk about first is California. This is a coral. It originally had a little bit of a golden overspray on it, but I think that wore away after like 2 uses. I love this because it's just so different from the other colors I have. This is really poppy, this is really bright, this is really fun. I think this will be really nice for spring and summer. It is a tiny bit hard to work with on my skin tone because I can go overboard with this very quickly, but it's such a pretty shade that I don't mind needing to be careful at all. Also, the formula on these Benefit powders is so good. I love working with them. Again, with another face palette, I told you I went a little bit face powder crazy in the first couple months of 2021. We have my Physicians Formula All-Star palette and this blush, which is the Happy Booster. And this is another one of those pretty subtle, go with anything kind of blushes that we were talking about a little bit earlier with the Bare Minerals. I just love that this has more of a satin finish to it. It almost has a little bit of a almost golden sheen to it. It's very subtle though, and I feel that it just looks very natural and healthy on the skin. All right, 2 more to go. Next we have this, actually an eyeshadow single. This is from Wet n Wild. It was originally in their Petalette Quad, not the new 5-pan that they have out now, but the quad. And this was the transition shade in that palette. It is such a pretty purpley rose color, and I think on my skin tone it just works as such a pretty blush. Swatch, I feel, in a swatch, especially compared to everything else that I have on my arm, I feel like this looks very cool toned and almost a little bit dead. However, on the cheeks, it really brings life into my face, funnily enough, and it does an incredible job of tying together looks that have a little bit more purple to them, and I just love the effect that this gives. I would be very interested in someday, once this is gone, which I don't think there's a ton of product left in here. I don't know how well you can see, but the product is actually pretty thin in the pan. I would be very interested in buying a blush that was very close to this color. And now, drumroll please, we have the last element, which did get spoiled earlier, but it's Dandelion from Benefit again. We have it right here, and let me swatch. This is, again, a really subtle, pretty blush, but I think this is just my favorite version of a really, really subtle blush, probably because it's the most subtle of the bunch. I feel like I can pair this with anything. This makes a great mix-in shade, both if I want to maybe dull out California just a little bit, make that a little bit more wearable, mix it with any of my glowy blushes. It looks beautiful. Even for a look that almost doesn't need blush, you almost don't want it to look like you're wearing blush, but you just need that little bit more life, especially if you're wearing foundation that's can kind of look a little bit mask-like if you don't add some kind of blush or bronzer, highlight, or combination of all three. I think this is such a perfect shade, and I've really loved using it. All right, so there's my ranking. Do you agree? Do you think that I am absolutely crazy to have put the e.l.f. Multi-stick so near the bottom and a purple eyeshadow so near the top? Let me know. I would be very curious to hear what your opinions on these products are. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed, and I hope you consider liking and subscribing if you did. I do plan to make a couple more of these ranking videos over the next few weeks, and this time, unlike when I said that in September or October, I actually have a plan to follow through, so you'll actually see those videos. So if you like ranking videos, definitely check back. Thanks again for watching, and I hope I'll see you next time. Bye!